Shalom and welcome to the land of the Bible called Israel. This country is about 300 miles in length and at its widest point about 75 miles in width. Jaffa was originally a Canaanite city. Today it is a thriving suburb on the southern outskirts of Tel Aviv. An ancient harbor was once used here. The prophet Jonah sailed from this harbor. Also, timbers from Phoenicia were floated into this harbor for delivery and use in Solomon's temple in Jerusalem. Peter also had a vision from heaven here at Jaffa. Many other modern harbors are located along the shoreline today. Jaffa can still be seen in the distance. Sunsets on the Mediterranean Sea are spectacular. Caesarea was a city built by Herod the Great. It was a 12-year project beginning in 22 BC. In the days of the Bible, Peter, Philip, and the Apostle Paul knew this city well. Over 1,100 years after Herod, the Crusaders also had a presence here. Fresh water from the Carmel Range miles away was brought into the city on this aqueduct built by Herod the Great. The Carmel Range is what separates the Sharon Plain to the west and the Jezreel Valley to the east and north. Today it is Israel's primary forest. The Jezreel Valley, called the Emek in Hebrew, is Israel's largest valley. The hill of Moreh is where Gideon defeated the Midianites, and the mountain called Mount Tabor is where Deborah and Barak defeated Sisera. The ancient site of Megiddo was both a Canaanite and Israelite city. Over 24 levels of occupation or ruins are represented here, spanning about 2,500 years. From the precipice, we see the modern city of Nazareth, the hometown of Jesus. Sepphoris was a Jewish city contemporary with Jesus. He would have visited this city, no doubt, being only 4 or 5 miles away from Nazareth. We can see how close Nazareth is from this Hellenized Jewish town. The village of Cana, mentioned in John 2, was located in this valley. The sunrise is spectacular over the Sea of Galilee, a freshwater lake. Close to where the Jordan River flows into the Sea of Galilee is one of 2 possible sites for Bethsaida. This town is where 3 of Jesus' disciples grew up: Peter, Andrew, and Philip. Among the ruins are early Roman and Byzantine structures and mosaics. The site of Et Tel is another possible location for ancient Bethsaida. In the days of the Old Testament, this was a royal city of the kingdom of Geshur. An impressive 6-chamber gate can still be seen today from the 11th and 10th centuries BC. On the northern end of the lake is where Jesus fed the 5,000 in the vicinity of Bethsaida. In Jesus' day, many of the Jewish towns and villages were located on this side of the Sea of Galilee. This church today preserves the traditional location for where Jesus shared the Sermon on the Mount. Could it be here on these slopes where Jesus taught his kingdom principles? The hike up Mount Arbel begins in the Valley of the Doves, a valley well used by Jesus and many others. These caves of refuge were used by Jews during the days of Herod the Great, as well as later during the first revolt against the Romans. The plain of Gennesaret and the city of Magdala can be seen below. While Mount Arbel is not specifically mentioned in the Gospels, could this be the high mountain where Jesus met his disciples after the resurrection? Capernaum was where Jesus spent most of his time during his ministry here in the Galilee. We see a 5th century synagogue built most likely over the 1st century one. Most of all the other ruins are from the days of Jesus. Jesus also called his first disciples somewhere along the shoreline of the Sea of Galilee. harbor of Magdala, the home of Mary Magdalene, has been excavated. Jesus sailed into this harbor at least once. Among the ruins of this first-century city is the synagogue, one of only 7 that date to the time of Jesus. Located on the northwest corner of the Sea of Galilee is Chorazin. Here among the 3rd century ruins we see another synagogue. The Sea of Galilee is about 13 miles in length and about 7 miles at its widest point. Because of the low elevation of this lake, close to 700 feet below sea level, and because of the unique air currents that occur because of the topography around the lake, storms can arise without warning. From this side of the lake, we can see Tiberias, the Arbel Cliffs, the plain of Gennesaret, and the location of Capernaum. Hippos, or Sosita, was one of the Decapolis cities. Among the ruins we see many ancient churches from the Byzantine period. The city is located on the southeast side of the Sea of Galilee. In the days of Jesus, Gamala was a Jewish city located 6 miles east of the northern point of the Sea of Galilee. It was destroyed in the first revolt in 66 AD. Another first-century synagogue was uncovered here. While we cannot be sure Jesus taught from here, we read, Jesus went throughout Galilee, teaching in their synagogues and proclaiming the good news of the kingdom. Hundreds of years after the time of Jesus, a Jewish town was developed here during the Talmudic period. Partially restored are a few houses and the synagogue. Mount Hermon is Israel's highest mountain. It stands at about 7,300 feet above sea level. The fortress of Nimrod was a crusader castle. It dates to the 13th century A.D. In the days of the Bible, this area was known as Bashan and was assigned to the tribe of Manasseh. Today, this area is the northern part of the Golan Heights. The Sa'ar Falls only flows with water during the winter months. Here at Tel Dan, the base of the altar and the high place built by Jeroboam in the 10th century BC can still be seen today. This mud brick gate dates to the time of the Canaanites. This Israelite gate and these walls display how well this city was fortified. In Jesus' day, Caesarea Philippi was a very pagan city. And it was in the region of this city where Jesus asked his disciples, "Who do you say I am?" The Bonias Spring is one of 3 tributaries of the Jordan River. At the base of this cliff was where the grotto was located. This included a temple to Augustus and sacred niches to the god Pan. The lower Jordan River leaves the Sea of Galilee and flows southward about 70 miles into the Dead Sea. Further south in this river is where Jesus was baptized. One of the most impressive archaeological parks in all of Israel is Beit Shan. This was a massive Roman city, complete with a theater, colonnaded streets, and bathhouses. This high hill of Beit Shan represents what the city looked like in the days of the Old Testament. After dying on Mount Gilboa nearby, the body of King Saul was hung on the city walls. Between the modern city of Jericho and the Judean desert is the site of Old Testament Jericho. Among the ruins here at Jericho, we see an old stone tower, perhaps the oldest in the country, as well as the double walls of the Canaanite city. A mud brick wall once stood on top of these stone retaining walls, and this is the wall that came tumbling down. Shortly after Joshua conquered the country, the tabernacle was located here for over 300 years. These ruins date to the time of the Israelites. According to the psalmist, the Judean desert is a dry and weary land where there is no water. It could have been near this area where the prophet Isaiah proclaimed, "A voice of one calling in the desert, prepare the way for the Lord. Make straight in the desert a highway for our God." John the Baptist also spent time here. He would proclaim the same words of Isaiah in preparation for the coming of Jesus, who himself spent 40 days here tempted by Satan. Founded in the 5th century AD, the St. George Greek Orthodox monastery was built into the cliff. In the days of the Old Testament, the prophet Jeremiah said this, "Take these documents, both the sealed and unsealed copies of the deed of purchase, and put them in a clay jar, so they will last a long time." Later in the 1st century, on the edge of the Judean desert and on the shoreline of the Dead Sea, those who lived here at Qumran did just this. They hid scrolls here. These scrolls are called the Dead Sea Scrolls today. In a total of 12 caves to date, scrolls, fragments of scrolls, and parchments have been found. These scrolls and fragments of scrolls include every book of the Old Testament. The majority of the scrolls were found here in Cave 4. Many other texts have been found that describe in detail the Essene community, the authors of the scrolls. En Gedi is an oasis here in the Judean desert. Water flows here all year long. Although not specifically mentioned in the Bible, Masada was one of the palace fortresses built by Herod the Great. Archaeologists have discovered casemate walls, a dozen cisterns, storerooms, the Roman ramp, and the palaces of Herod. A 3-tiered palace was built here on the northern end of the site. In 73 AD, over 960 Jews lost their lives here on Masada. The Judean desert is a wonderful place to ride camels. The Dead Sea is the lowest place on Earth, close to 1,400 feet below sea level. also called the Salt Sea in the Bible. The Dead Sea is 33% salt and minerals. Moses viewed the Promised Land from here. Machaerus was yet another palace fortress built by King Herod the Great. John the Baptist lost his head here. A palace, a very deep cistern, and a few ritual baths were uncovered here. The ancient red rose city of Petra was located among the mountains of Seir. Almost a mile walk through the Seek or canyon leads us to the famous treasury. Another very famous tomb of the ancient Nabateans is the monastery. A back trail here at Petra eventually leads us to the high place. Animal sacrifice took place here at the high place in honor of Dushara, the primary Nabatean god. This desert area of Wadi Rum was made famous by Lawrence of Arabia during World War I. In the days of the Old Testament, this is where the Edomites lived. Staying here at this Bedouin camp is a unique experience. Eilat is Israel's Red Sea port city, here on the Gulf of Aqaba. Throughout this park, ancient Egyptian copper mines have been discovered. Over 50 chapters in the Old Testament are dedicated to the building and maintenance of the tabernacle. Inside the holy chamber was the table of presence, the menorah, and the altar of incense. In the Holy of Holies was the Ark of the Covenant. The Maktesh Rimon is Israel's most impressive geological site. It is 24 miles long, 5 miles wide, and 1,600 feet deep. Another impressive geological site is the Desert of Zin. Here we see the ibex, in the Old Testament, the 12 spies came up through this region. Later, Moses also would strike the rock for water somewhere here. The ancient capital of the Nabateans was Petra. However, here at Avdat, the Nabateans also had a presence. In the Byzantine period, many churches were built here. Arad was both a Canaanite city as well as a Judean city. The lower, well-fortified part of the city dates to the Canaanite period. A false worship center was built here by the Judeans in the upper part of the city. Kings like Hezekiah and Josiah brought an end to these high places. In this northern part of the Negev is Tel Beersheba. Primarily, the ruins date to the time of the First Temple. Lachish was an impressive Canaanite city destroyed by Joshua. Later on, the city became well fortified during the Judean kingdom, complete with a double-wall fortification system, a double gate system, and a palace. Eventually, the Assyrian army from the north conquered this city. Finally, the Babylonians brought an end to Lachish. This impressive amphitheater is one of only 2 in all of Israel. These caves were made to raise pigeons. The soft limestone made it easy to carve out the bell caves. The Old Testament name for this city was Marashah. It was the home of Micah, the prophet. The smaller site of Libnah served as a Canaanite and Judean city as well. Here we see a live excavation of this ancient city. The primary city of the Philistines was Gath. The city served as the home of Goliath, the giant. The ruins vary from being simple house structures to city walls and gates. Azekah is one of many archaeological sites along the Elah Valley. Khirbet Jafa was an 11th to 10th century city, well fortified with walls and 2 gates. It also overlooks the Elah Valley. Because of the 2 sets of chambered gates, some suggest this site to be Sha'araim. One of the most famous stories in the Bible is David and Goliath. Here from Sukkot, we get a great view of the Elah Valley and the possible locations where the battle took place. The ancient city of Beit Shemesh was located on the southern side of the Sorek Valley. On the northern side was Zorah, the home of Samson. The excavations on the east side of the modern road have produced some impressive Israelite ruins. Located along the Ajalon Valley, this Canaanite city was well fortified with towers, walls, and gates, as well as an impressive water system. Later, King Solomon refortified this city with this 6-chamber gate. An ancient high place with standing stones was also discovered here. Kiryat Ye'arim is best known to be the location for the Ark of the Covenant before it was taken to Jerusalem. Today, a modern church stands here. Bethlehem was once the home of King David. 1,000 years following him, Jesus was born here. The prophet Micah prophesied these words. But you, Bethlehem Ephratah, though you are small among the clans of Judah, out of you will come for me one who will be ruler over Israel, whose origins are from of old, from ancient times. A few miles east of Bethlehem stood another palace fortress of King Herod the Great. After dying in Jericho, Herod was buried here. This palace fortress was well fortified with 4 towers, one larger than the other 3. Israel's Holocaust Museum and Memorial is located in western Jerusalem. It is called Yad Vashem. These are 2 Hebrew words that mean a memorial and a name, taken from Isaiah 56. Jerusalem, the city of gold. The psalmist wrote, "Those who trust in the Lord are like Mount Zion, which cannot be shaken, but endures forever. As the mountains surround Jerusalem, so the Lord surrounds his people, both now and forevermore."